Prost.
Cooling down, yeah, Prost.
Yeah,
Cheers.
yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Yes, keeping it cool.
Yes.
I put down the fans because the fans were on and you are gonna be crazy when the fans are rolling on the background, so.
Shall I shave my head also?
Yeah, you can do it. Then we got 3 boldies here on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
It was like now a half a year ago for me, so.
Only a year.
Only, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was in my mid-20s, so it's over half my life ago. So, it's old.
So you get used to it, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
So I never want to go back. Shave it in the morning.
Absolutely.
It's really
If I'd have known in my teenage years how cool it would be to have no hair, I would have just shaved it. You know what I mean?
Just then.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Oh. So that you can learn from us tonight, you know.
Yeah, just get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Yeah, Raul. Next time you're here.
I will.
Yeah, you get rid of it. Okay, I hold you to that. So we are here in Delft again, show 61 already, and today we got a special guest, Guy, and we got Guy.
No, Guy is much better.
But I
prefer
Oh,
Guy.
yeah,
sorry.
prefer Guy,
Okay.
because there was an AV event festival, and the guy there was called Guy. So I'm switching between
No, I
you and
much
him.
prefer
Guy.
it. It sounds good.
Guy
But I
sounds
know
good.
you as Guy.
Guy Gowan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Gowan,
but
so-
now it's Guy. Okay.
So.
Alright.
But there are 2 people on the table. We're doing a question and answer to that. You can do the question and answer in the chat. The chat is open on the YouTube channel. The chat is open on the Facebook channel. They both work. I see people in the Facebook. Remco is there. Gert-Jan, Roland, Esther, Davy, Raul is there as well. But you are here. Oh, Chopko, nice. And there are lots of people in the YouTube, so you're all there. Thank you. Tonight you're gonna ask questions to the people on the table, and you can win an exposure print. The question that will be on top of our mind at the end of the episode, they win an exposure. An exposure is like a print system. You can put a print on a frame, and then you can put some how do you say it, strength on it, and then it spins, and you can put it on the wall.
Oh, okay.
It's a really nice system. I can show you later. The show is made possible by BBP Light, and I always show some commercial from them. So here it comes.
Really flying the music. Okay.
And we're back again. So, who have I on the table? On this side?
You want me to say who I am?
Yeah, I want you to say that, or Raul can start.
Yeah,
if
well,
you
I'll
want.
be Guy, and yeah, I'm Guy, and yeah, why am I here?
Are you?
Yeah, I just invited you
Yeah,
because we met a long time ago,
quite some time ago now. Yeah.
and that's because you made some cool workflow shit. How do you say it? Something like that.
Yeah,
And-
well, we met a number of times, didn't we? You came to more than one workshop, I think, because
Yeah.
when we met up in Delft, probably 5 years ago now, maybe even more, maybe.
Yeah.
We knew each other then, didn't we? So
Yeah.
you came to that again. So yeah. So I do post-production.
Post
I
production.
do
Yeah.
loads of stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But obviously the main thing that I do is post-production.
Nice. And the post production you use as well.
Yes.
Yeah, from Guy,
a small
yeah.
part, I think, for all the capabilities that Guy has to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a photographer and working. I think a lot of photography, a lot of my where I am as photographer now in my post process, in my Photoshop, in my editing. I have a lot to thank to Guy for because my workflow is quick. I love quick workflows. I don't like to spend hours on one picture, but I like to spend little time on more pictures.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And what do you do for what kind of pictures do you do?
I do a lot of studio photography and also wedding photography, commercial photography, but mainly studio. I have my own. my own studio, and the studio mostly people. So I do studio portrait, maternity, children, and that kind of stuff.
Oh,
A lot
that's
of
cool.
studio photography. Yes.
And you do the workflow as well.
Yeah.
Guy, do you do something with photography as well, or do you only make the workflow for photography?
Yeah. When I'm busy, I end up taking pictures and selling them and stuff like that. So I mean, I wouldn't be, I would never call myself a photographer, but I do take images and I would frame them and I would sell them in cafes, restaurants, and stuff like that. And I've done that in a number of different places. So that's just for me, though. I don't do it to make money. I do it just to validate the process in a way. You know, it gives you a small little kind of, yeah, well, it works. Somebody will buy it, so it's cool. I really like, obviously, taking pictures, and I do it for myself. But then when I do more graphic design stuff, which I haven't done really a lot in the last few years, but when I do, I would take the pictures myself, as many as I can. So it's just a part of the process to me. So whereas, say, like you're a photographer, it's all about photography.
Mm-hmm.
To me, when you make a book, it's a design project, and photography is just a part of it. So,
Yeah.
you know, to me, I do the whole thing, so I really like it, but I really like designing layouts. I really like typography. I like the whole thing, and I love making movies. So, you know, photography in a sense, or imaging, is just a part of making movies, isn't it? It's the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's like
So-
thinking in images or thinking
yeah,
in.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Because we started up with the show, your portfolios are gone as well, so I must start up this one. So, Raul, tell us a lot more about shooting in the studio and shooting with the guy
Okay.
with workflow. What can you tell about it?
Okay, the one thing I always remember what Guy tells at his workshops is that photographers should do what they like, do what they love to do, and that is making pictures, and not spending hours in post-processing and editing.
Mhm.
And I always remember that because I think a lot of photographers spend too much time in post-processing. Partly because they're fixing errors they make with the lighting, errors they made with a lot of stuff, but also because they think they are also designers, and we are photographers and we have to do the things we really like to do, and that's making pictures. But what I do when I make pictures, I put them on the computer. I select some pictures to edit. And the first thing I do is, because I know I'm working in the studio, my lighting is always okay. So the first thing I do is run the process action that I got from learned at that guy's workshop, and then merge the layers, and then I start editing on the skin. I don't use the other actions, but I do the skin retouching myself. And usually my goal is maximum at 5 minutes per picture, but usually made 1 to 2 minutes per picture. And I do a quick retouch.
Was that your purpose, to set up the actions for making a better workflow or a quicker workflow?
Yeah, I mean, I never looked at the photographic industry and went, oh wow, look, they would love this. I only just teach what I would do myself, and because I started in a business environment where I started in LIFO. So you had to be creative because you were problem fixers in terms of taking a graphic design and making it work on a printing press. You had to be really creative to do that. But there was a stopwatch on your time, because in business you can't spend, like you said, you don't want to spend 2 hours on an image. Well, I would argue today the value of an image, the resale value of an image, doesn't justify spending 2 hours, because you've just eaten the profit of the next day's work. So how does that work? So, but I think people who spend lots of time working on their images like that, they do it because it pleases them. I know loads of photographers who very quietly at the end of a show they'll say, I much prefer editing than I do taking pictures. They love the
Sitting on the computer.
intricacy of, and in a sense the creative side of turning the picture into something that it could never have been photographic. So, but that still doesn't justify on a business level. If it's a business level and you're selling something, well, there has to be the profit in that thing you're making to justify the time you spend, because your time has got an hourly rate.
Yes.
And so when I worked in scanning or retouching and stuff like that, you had a load of work to do every day and you had to complete it, and it also had to be brilliant too. There was none, oh yeah, but you only gave me 5 minutes, I couldn't do my best job, and you would be sacked. You would be told to leave.
Yeah.
So I think the world of photography is very, very different than a normal commercial endeavour, business that I would have been involved in.
Mm.
And so what people do when they're just working on their own images doesn't define an industry. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what you do. And you need to make profit. And obviously, if anybody's been involved in the industry for the last 10, 15 years, profit does this, right?
Yep.
So that would mean you'd have less and less and less time to work on your images if you're going to be conscious of your time. So,
Yeah.
so I make workflow because it's the fastest I can do it, but it's also no compromise. It's the best it can be with the shortest amount of time. So surely that's got to be a good thing, right?
Yeah, it's best of both worlds.
So,
you know.
and very rare in life do you ever get something where somebody sells you something or teaches you something where it's a fraction of the time, but it's also better.
Yeah.
Normally, you would expect it to be a compromise. You'd go,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I don't mind because I don't mind losing 10% of quality
Mm.
because it's twice as quick.
Yeah.
Well, if I can, if you can leave, say, like a wedding to process while you're asleep, and then when you wake up in the morning and the images are better than if you wanged around in Lightroom, well, then surely that's got to be a good thing, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep. That's a question they ask here. What kind of program do you mainly use for post-production? Photoshop, Lightroom,
Yeah.
or something else? Lightroom, of course, yeah.
yeah,
No.
Lightroom, I think is
Lightroom.
yeah. I do have to be conscious here about swearing, don't I? Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can swear if you want. No, I have the other episode was in English. We have a swear lady on the side.
Do we have a swear box?
Yeah.
So we have to put €5 in.
No, you can swear what you want. It's no, I don't mind.
Oh, well, Lightroom is it's just a raw converter, and that's all it is. And so there's many raw converters, and I don't really care which one you use. I just try and get people to do very little in them,
Mhm.
because I do everything in Photoshop
Yeah.
of meaning. So for me, I just use a raw converter to simply take that raw file from the camera and turn it into a workable image, a rendered file, and it has to go through a raw converter. So
Mhm.
I don't care really. I mean, personally, I still use Aperture, and many of the web members still use it, and they won't let go of it because it is by far the best raw converter
Yeah.
that there is out there.
Yeah,
By
you
far.
showed that at some workshops that
Yeah.
Photoshop, if you look at the highlights, that Aperture.
Lightroom by default. If you just install it and then you leave it and you don't change any of the settings, in that state, it's the worst raw converter there is. Period.
Yeah.
And there's no point arguing because you can't win.
No.
And I think the problem today is that it's so easy to convince people to do things when you stick an Adobe logo on it.
Mhm.
And my argument has always been, we're consumers, right, whether we like it or not. And some people are more discerning. Like I would say, being in my 50s, I can be discerning because I've been around a long time.
Yeah.
So the marketing bullshit doesn't work on me. All I do, in my last not the last webcast 2 days ago, but the members webcast last week, I did a little review of On1, the raw converter of On1, because many people were asking me, so what's it like? Is it any good? They're asking me, is it any good? What are you asking me for?
Hmm.
Download the beta, or
Yeah.
download the freebie, the trial, and have a look at it. And the way I look at it is this: if I put my images that I know really well into all of the raw converters, and I don't touch them, because they're all different. It's like film in the old days, right?
Mhm.
So they're all different. And On1 is by far the worst. There's the least amount of shadow detail. The skin tones are nowhere near as good as Aperture or Lightroom or Capture, and it does the auto recovery thing.
Yeah.
And the amount of people on the planet who don't understand that Lightroom interprets your image without your permission.
Yeah, that's a fun thing, because I think a lot of people don't know that. A
Yeah.
lot of people think raw is awesome.
I know.
This is the
I
digital
know.
negative, and if you
I know.
open it with whatever program, it's always a negative. But
Well, you asked about, do I want to show something? That on my website there's there's a focus. It's a free to view preview of what I think about raw converters. This one's from a long time ago, but this is also another, I think, a really important point. This one is probably 4 years old, and like Adobe still haven't rectified what I consider to be the problem in the program. They have no right, do they? They have no right to go into your image and change it on your behalf and not tell you that it's happened.
Yeah.
No right.
You got a movie about it.
Yeah, I mean, we can see that later.
Later on,
Maybe
yeah.
do it in the next bit. But
There was a question on Capture One as well.
Yeah.
Why are a lot of people also found on about Capture One? Is Capture One a better?
My argument with it all is the same. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Capture, I think people use it because of brand identity, like we do with so many other things in life, right?
Yeah.
And they want to be seen to be using it, and they associate with Capture as a piece of software all the magic and grandeur of Phase as a company.
Yeah.
So if Phase make these wonderful cameras, then they must make the best piece of software. Right? Well, no, they make a good piece of software.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it the best. It just makes it a piece of software. And also, raw converters are the worst image editors that you can possibly use to edit your file. All of them, every single one of them. So when you go into all the wang bars, and I use that term intentionally, it's because it's the worst sharpening you can do. Yes, it sharpens the image, but in terms of pure quality, is it the best sharpening? None of them do the best sharpening. What I do in Photoshop is the best sharpening. And when it comes to contrast, is it the best contrast when you do a little S shape or you wang the slider across? No, it's the worst. It's the most convenient. It's the easiest. It means you don't have to learn anything to be able to do it. Well, how can that be right? So it's so I'm not interested in that, and that's because I'm in my 50s. If I was in my 20s right now, and I didn't know the things I knew from before, well, of course, I would be going, Lightroom is the best thing ever, and Capture, it's amazing, because I'd have no frame of reference. I'd have no perspective on things when things were better, you know, and doing it right. So there's no way I can just for convenience throw away all my knowledge just because the software today is what we use.
Yeah.
So
Here's a guy, he says, I'm spending a lot of time on my picture, about 2 hours an image, but it's a signature edit, really recognizable and as a picture of mine. Is it? Can you do a signature with your?
yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I think the principle is that for me is that I don't even carry my camera with me anymore. It just sits in the locker. So here's a device, and it takes a picture, and in your head you might you have a signature, you have something in your head that you want the picture to be. My guess is that's a constant. That will be a theme. It will be, you would like that trait on the image. Now a lot of people would think that it only gets there because of loads of little incremental creative changes. Because of my past, I would see that you would be doing about 90% of the same thing on every single picture. So while you're doing what you're doing, if you find yourself doing the same thing, which will be the case over 90% of the time, well, then you can formulate that in a way in Photoshop. You can't do that in Lightroom or any other program. You can do it in Photoshop, where you can build an action around it. And the principle for me has always been the repetition that I have to do, because cameras suck. But they all need processing, right?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a human being in the world of photography that ever presented a raw file into a competition, right? Just a raw file.
Yeah, a lot of photographers even get mad if a client asks for raw files. They don't want to give it.
No,
So-
of course they wouldn't want to. I mean, not only because they feel like they're giving their firstborn child away, but because it doesn't look very good, because the raw data is flat, it's lifeless, it's unsharp, it's lacking in colour. So processing is the most important part of the process.
Yeah.
Because if you've got an asset that you've gone click, and here's my raw file, and you can't supply that to a client before you process it, what part is the most important part?
Yeah.
It's processing. And when you put it into the processed food approach, which is raw converters,
Yeah.
and whenever I speak to anybody, when I'm out and about talking, they always say, yeah, but it's so easy, it's so quick. Yeah, but that doesn't make it good. doesn't make it good. And then in your action, I don't know which one of my process actions you use at the moment, but it's moved on a lot in the last few years.
Yes, I know. It's also a lot bigger.
Yeah, and obviously it takes a bit longer and
Yes.
things, but all I try to do is improve it every single time. And if sharpening is 100% better than what you can do in raw converters, if contrast is better, if the shadow detail I get out of the image is better in Photoshop, why wouldn't you want to do it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's all now digital, you couldn't work the way I work with film, because film was a moving target, how it was processed. Even the batches of film would be different, and then when they were processed, they would have different traits, different anomalies. So you'd never be able to have my approach, but as soon as cameras went digital, to me it was a step back in quality from film. But it was digital, so it means it's the same crap every time.
Yeah.
So once it's then predictable crap, well then we can build the antidote to it. So like you, I want to process my image in a minute, because I like retouching.
Yeah.
That's the creative bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, but processing, sharpness, contrast, shadow detail, colour and all that stuff to make it just look really, really good, how I wish it looked out of the camera. So that's automatic, you just batch process.
It's like the basics.
Yeah.
The basics, yeah.
For the people watching and they don't know Guy Gowan or they don't know the system, can you explain a little about the system or
Me?
Yeah.
Should I give like a 1 minute where I came from and everything?
Yeah.
Okay, really quickly. 16, went to work in a litho studio. That was the bit in between graphic design and print. So we just had to take a graphic designer's creative idea of what that page or the spread would look like or the advert would look like, and then we had to make it that it would print. And then scanning transparencies and prints became a part of that. And so I did that for quite some time. I became a scanner operator, which was just like a miracle. I was a scanner operator at the age of 18 because the guy who actually was a scanner operator got ill, got hepatitis and nearly died.
Okay.
So I just turned up. I was his assistant, and I turned up in the morning, and I was just a scanner operator at 18. And so by the time I was 21, I'd had 3 years experience. Then I joined Crossfield Electronics. They were the people who made the very, very, very first completely digital scanner, input and output. So then I travelled around the world installing and teaching that from 21. I did that for about 3 years. Went and lived in Yugoslavia for a year. Took a big contract to look after a newspaper over there who bought loads of Crossfield equipment. Then went back to Crossfield in the UK, then lived in the north of England, did another contract, did loads of stuff. And then about 30, when I was about 30, I then joined a company, The Last Word. And that's when all this was possible, everything that we know as the landscape with DTP, desktop publishing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I joined Crossfield Electronics, The Last Word in London, and that's where it was an Apple Mac II, right? The very first
Yeah.
like commercial one, 8 meg of RAM, 22 megahertz processor, 22 megahertz, and the fastest network that you had was 1 meg a minute. That was Ethernet. That was the fastest network. Instead of having like a £4 or £5 million installation for a big desktop publishing system, which I would have gone around the world to install and teach for weeks on end, it now came down to like £250,000.
Yep.
But then so did the page rate too, instantly. So you made even less money with it because you couldn't sell it, your product, at the same price. So it all became DTP and PostScript, and it was a nightmare. But that's when I saw Photoshop 1, the very first version, and I went, what the fuck? I mean, how can this be real? This was like kind of Teletubbies, or, it was like, what is this computer shit? And biggest hard drive was 200 meg and 8 meg of RAM, and we were trying to do double page A4 spreads of A3 spreads of magazine work. And if you put an image in Quark Express at that time and printed it to the rip, that was a 70 megabyte image, and it could only go at 1 meg a minute, so you had to wait for 2 hours sometimes for it to get to the rip, and then there'd be a PostScript error, like more than 50% of the time. Wow. So it was a nightmare, but with all the knowledge I had from scanning and retouching and teaching and everything, then I saw Photoshop, and I hated it, every second of it, until I looked at the palettes because I didn't look at the palettes of Photoshop 1 for quite some time, because I was just looking at the features, and it had a curve in there, and I knew curves, and I thought, something I can hold on to, that's cool. And then I saw channels, and as soon as I saw channels, I knew that was it. It was cool.
Yeah.
So Lightroom doesn't have channels. Capture doesn't have channels. No RAW converter has channels, and on that basis, there's no point looking at it. It's going to be the worst thing in comparison to Photoshop to manipulate your file.
Yeah.
So, how can I not say that? It is true. So. So when I did the little review of On One, sadly, the first thing I do when I look at software is I just go to all the palettes, open them all up, and I see what is on offer. And if I don't see one that gives me access to channels, and then I look at just the colour of the image, because I would call that the film.
Mm-hmm.
That's its lookup table and its conversion, and what is its base image giving to me. If it's not as good as the program I'm using already, why would I want to change?
Yeah. Why change a winning team?
Yeah, just for the sake of changing, or just because all the other people at your club use this, and that's all I see is like a herd mentality, because everybody else is doing it. Oh shit, maybe I should do the same.
Yeah.
With that philosophy doesn't come out of strength of knowledge, that comes out of weakness of not having it.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of members that I have on my website, they go, I love going into my camera club because I'm the only person that uses aperture, and I get slagged off all the time, but I win the competition more often than not. So that's like from my own heart. That's what I love. Yeah.
But if you don't have Apple, you cannot work with the aperture.
No, no, of course, and also it's discontinued, so it has no future, which is horrific. But it's typical of Apple at the moment.
Yeah.
Stepping away from the pro markets, it's appalling. But hey, it's fine. It's the thing I use at the moment, but I'm happy to teach people capture. I'm happy to teach them whatever they choose to use. It's not defining, because it's what you do in Photoshop afterwards. It's defining. It only is defining as to what RAW converter you use if you do everything in it. And my argument would be, if you're trying to do everything in a RAW converter, you may not know it, but you're trying to win the 100 meters by hopping rather than running, and to me there's no sense in that.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the questions. There are coming some questions.
There'll probably be quite a few.
Yeah. Where were we? It was here. Here was it, yeah, the signature. When new features are being presented in post-processing software, how much time before the world will see it and do it and get to play with it? Because you don't, or if you did present it for them. So how do you say that? Marco, if you want to rearrange your question, maybe I can do it all otherwise. Is someone using outgoing sRGB in Capture One? No, not for me. For you?
No. Well, no, I don't. I do. I mean, I use sRGB. That's my color space that I use for everything.
But not in Capture One.
Yeah, but you can't in Capture One. Yeah. But there's something ringing in my head. One of the members said recently that they made it happen. But maybe I'm confusing that with something else.
Maybe it's still ringing about an hour.
Yeah.
There's no problem.
Yeah.
And there was a question from, at some point in the future, aperture probably won't work anymore on the Mac.
Yeah,
what RAW program will you use next?
Yeah, my favourite one from a workflow point of view is just Adobe Camera Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I was you, for instance, I wouldn't use anything that makes a library, because the library is just it's a Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, but the problem I have with Adobe Camera Raw, because everything I do now in Adobe Camera Raw, if I have a lot, let's say 200-300 pictures, I have to go from left to right, and I have the feeling I don't know
Left to right.
Yeah, if I want to change the wing brush, if I +1 or -1 exposure, can you do it on the keyboard? Can you do it? Because now I have to, next picture, on the left you have all the pictures.
Yeah, you have all the pictures and you have to go through them one at a time.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, that's not the problem, because you always have to go one at a time.
Yeah,
but the problem is every bar, because I kill the
it's
sharpening.
Cumbersome. It's cumbersome. Yeah.
And I have the feeling that it's more efficient in
No,
Lightroom?
it's
No?
not more.
Okay.
I mean, the only thing that you get in a RAW converter, like Lightroom or Capture things, especially Lightroom, and that's what people generally like, is that once they've retouched one picture in that scene, they can copy and then paste it on the next ones in that scene.
But
and
you
make
can
copies.
you can
You can
synchronize
do
with
that. You can
yeah.
do that in. But the reason I like Adobe Camera Raw is because it works great with a bridge.
Mhm.
So Camera Raw and Bridge together is basically Lightroom. It's exactly the same program. Okay.
Mhm.
So I like the ease of use of that. I like not having a library. I don't know anybody that actually needs to have their images in a library, because having your images in a library actually causes you a few cul-de-sacs. It causes you problems,
Yeah.
because then you have to manage a library, and then if you want to have a library which has all of your images in it, then you have this enormous great big thing which you have to manage. It's a ridiculous thing to do. I did it in the first probably 18 months of having libraries in Aperture, but now what I do for every single thing that I do, whether it be a job or whether it just be my own images, I make a new library for every individual shoot.
An individual library.
So they're all kept nice and lean, they're very small, they're easy to move around. And but if I was a professional, say like doing weddings and stuff, there's no way I would use a library-based application. So Adobe Camera Raw is Lightroom, it's exactly the same engine.
Yeah.
So the same quality comes out.
Yeah, that's.
And as I don't use the tools in Lightroom or any other program, I only use Photoshop to do the editing, the real processing. It doesn't matter which one I use. So Adobe Camera Raw, Capture I really like. My only slight bugbear with Capture is that I think it's weighted. It leans towards its proprietary system with its own cameras.
Yeah.
And when you use something which is non-proprietary, like Canon or Nikon or whatever, Fuji, in Capture, there's just a massive loss of shadow detail, and that just drives me insane, because I specialize in large dynamic range from a single shot. That's what I focus on, because that's what we all need. And it would mean if Aperture just died tomorrow and I just couldn't even install it, which is going to happen, and it's fine, I don't care anymore. I was gutted when I heard, but over it now. Then I'd probably use Capture. But then I would always say to everybody, these things are so cheap, right? They're so cheap. Buy all of them. You know, it's like
try it.
Photographers don't only have one lens, which is their favourite lens, right? You have like 10 lenses, and then I ask people, why did you buy them? You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you'd walk into a scene and you go, right, what lens do I need here?
Yeah.
So it's an interchangeable thing. You don't just go with one and try and make it work. So see RAW converters as the same. Buy
Yeah.
them all, and then stop asking other people what they think. Learn them all yourself, and then have your own opinion. And then if you did buy them all, then you can put one image into all of them, and then ask yourself, which image do I prefer to start to work with?
Compare
Because that's
them.
the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And then that you would reevaluate your words of saying, "Well, Lightroom's the best," because it's just not the best. It's good, but it's not the best, and that's what I have exception to. When people run around, I don't mean users, but when other people like me who are influencers, and they run around telling people what to do, and they go, "Yeah, this is the best." By what criteria did you judge that? Is it scientific, or is there money going in your back pocket, or is it just the only one you know? And that's usually the case. So that's when I get. That's when
use them all, and
it
then
becomes MMA, and we can go in the cage. That's cool.
Yeah. I think this is one for both of you. What kind of source is the source you learned the most of, and from who?
That'd be you.
Yeah, is it about photography or Photoshop?
Yeah, I think
just
photography
answer,
or editing. You can answer it.
If in the case of photography, I learned most of Google. I'm in Dutch we call it autodidact. I don't know if it's in English, but I learned it myself.
Self-taught.
Self-taught. Yeah, exactly, self-taught. I started in 2003, 2004, and I went to the library. I read a lot of books. I googled, and in my time when I started, there wasn't really YouTube tutorials, so I had to learn it all by myself. So that is how I trial and error, partly, and partly by the books. Read a lot of books, so that's how that's the research. As about Photoshop, I had a friend who loved to make flyers and stuff like that. So he learned me the basic things of Photoshop. In my first photography, I used a lot of Gaussian blur. Really terrible, I know.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's a lot of
To make
blur.
it smooth.
Yeah, make it smooth. Yeah, if I look at it at those pictures, I really think. Oh my
Yeah, but
God.
you learned from it. So
Yeah.
That's
So and later on, I think since 2012 or 13 or something like that, I tell myself I have to follow at least 2 workshops a year to to learn.
to keep
So
the
I-
skills,
yeah.
to keep the
So I
skills.
attend workshops like that of Guy or other workshops, mostly Photoshop, but sometimes also photography.
Mhm.
And I really like doing it because even though if it's stuff I already know, you always get inspired, or you see, hey, that photographer does it like that, or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Inspiration you get
Yeah,
from the days.
inspiration,
Yeah,
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. So that's my part of the story. What about
And
you?
your sources,
Yeah.
Guy.
Mine, I don't learn pretty much anything from other people. So
It's all
I just-
self-taught as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just went through so many different environments, and you learn obviously through working with people. But I've never been to a lecture in my life. I've never been to a workshop in my life.
Mm.
I don't have the constitution for it, because I want to find my way of doing it, and then I want to ask questions once I found out what I can't do.
Mhm.
So I just think that it's genetic for me. I don't have the will and the need to copy what somebody else does. But they're the influencers. There's 2 people who have influenced me in this sphere. And from a photography point of view, there was a really good friend. I became really good friends with this guy, and John Crook. Sadly, he died a couple of years after meeting him. He had cancer, but he taught me photography.
Mhm.
And he taught me that it's got nothing to do with the camera. And it's on the money. And I would say this at any opportunity. I'd say this at most workshops, that I watch people running around with gadgets and gizmos and a back belt, and they've got these utility things hanging from it and reflectors and shit. And that's not photography at all. Photography is having a picture in your head of what you want to make.
And then translate.
Yeah, and that's why I like making movies, because movies is infinitely more complex.
Yep.
A still image is a hard thing to achieve, but a movie is a million times harder, and I love that. And if I didn't do what I'm doing for a living right now, I'd be a movie maker tomorrow morning. But I'm not into the cameras anymore and the gadgets and all the latest kit and stuff. I'm interested with a pencil, piece of paper, and storyboarding an idea. I like getting around the table with a bunch of people and saying, what should we do?
Cool. Yeah.
And you should do the same in photography too, or you can learn the creative process.
Mhm.
Not by thinking that you've watched every movie on Google about Photoshop. It doesn't make you good at imaging because you've watched every movie. It's like it's got to come within you. You've got to be a creative individual.
Mhm.
And so this guy, I remember I met him. I'd just finished working for Adobe, because I didn't finish my big thing, did I? And then I worked
No.
with Adobe for like 8 years as a presenter, and I travelled pretty much all over the world. I did probably 2/3 of the planet with Adobe for 8 years, presenting at every big show, Photokina, Drupa, everything for
Yeah.
years.
PI
and
here.
years.
And, yeah.
So for like 10 months a year, 5 days a week, I was presenting a workshop at something or other, a product release or a trade show or something. And I did that for 8 years.
Yeah.
That was knackering. And then obviously I then stopped doing that. And then I did it also with Apple. I represented Apple for a long time, and Nikon and Canon from time to time, and then just ended up doing my own stuff. So then I've been doing my own stuff now. Like
Yeah.
completely independent of any manufacturers now. I've been doing that for about 9 years.
I don't know. The first time I saw you in the lecture, you came up and you said something funny. I don't know what it was, but you know what I meant.
I'm going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Adobe wanted me to go head to head with an American presenter. Would
Yeah.
say who that is, and I went, oh, that's just stupid. You know, I mean, God, we're just trying to help people. We don't have to like make a fight between presenters. So I was sharing a thing, and you were that one. There's like 2,000 people in the audience, and I never prepare anything. I prepared nothing for here apart from you said you wanted some images, and I
Yeah.
never know what I'm going to say until the mic or the audience is live. And I walked right to the front, and all the top directors of Adobe were there, and they were all up looking at me, thinking, "What the fuck is he gonna say?"
Yeah.
And I went, "My camera sucks, and so does Photoshop." You remember? And
Yeah.
it was dead because the other guy had been on, and it was like rah rah rah, baseball hats in the audience, and here, look at my sepia, dink, and it goes da 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 da, dunk, and it's all a script, and it's lovely. It doesn't teach you shit, right? It doesn't teach you anything. And I came on, I just said, "My camera sucks, and so does Photoshop," and you could have heard a pin drop.
It was a
And
really good one.
then I was just watching the body language, and then people were turning to their friends and, "Did he just say that? Did he really just say that?" And then I just said, "Yeah, well, of course it's not crap, right? My camera doesn't really suck. But the point is, it's not what they're billed up. It's not what they're sold as. No one ever gets anything right in camera, right? The only way you can get an image right in camera is if you only think the image can be half of what it has the potential to be. So other presenters I see, when I come off of my stage and I'm walking around the trade show, and then I've done what I'm doing, saying you can't get anything right in camera, but you can grab the data you need, and then we can do something cool with it after. And then I walk past another person just like me in a position of authority on a trade show. Yeah, I don't do any of that Photoshop shit. I'd get it right in camera. And basically, you're an arse, because all you're actually saying is you don't know how to do anything in Photoshop. So you put down the things, and by doing my job for such a long time, many years, it's all about psychology. Everything is psychology. And you have to prove it. If someone's going to say this is the best or this is bad, prove it to me. Don't just say it's bad. Why?
Yeah.
And then they can't.
Give me the result.
Can't even begin. It's like when someone's trying to teach you something. If somebody's trying to teach you something and that they convince you that they're right and you're wrong, and oh, my skin smoothing technique is better than yours. Well, why? They always say when someone has to get a computer to show you, well, then they're talking out of their ass, aren't they? They have no idea. They don't know the theory as to why. All they can do is show you what they've learned from somewhere else. Why would I want to listen to that if they don't know why it's better? So somebody who knows what they're talking about can just talk. Can just speak and say, yeah, it's better because, the algorithm here and bada bada bada, and then that's convincing. So John Crook, he used to call me up, this guy, photographer, getting it back on subject. He called me up and said, let's do some photography. So I put all my cameras and shit in the car, and I met him at this place. We went to do some photography, and I got my bags, and he said, don't need those, leave them in the car. And I said, yeah, but we're doing photography. And he said, yeah, but we're going to talk about photography. And we just walked around the stately home. And then he just said, so if you had to take a picture right now, where would you stand? What would it look like? And then he would just get me, if that was me, and he would just move me 6 inches to the left. Because that would create a better frame for the window, because it wouldn't be obscured by a branch. It would then, there would be a fork in the thing, and then the right thing would be there. And then, so that would be composition. And so we'd do it with our eyes, because fundamentally that's what a camera is, right? It's just a photocopier.
It's an extension.
And so it's the first thing I look for is the composition. Where am I going to put it? Do I want something framing the picture coming in from the outside? So if I just move only 2 inches over here, or even 2 feet, or go in between those trees, I get a better shot. And then the most important thing he used to say to me was, he said, okay, well, we've got the right composition, but this ain't the time of day to take the picture, is it? So let's make a note. Here's a really good place to stand. And then we would sit and discuss what would it look like at dawn. The light's coming from over here. What kind of shape would it create across the front of the house or whatever? So we just discussed photography, the creative side of photography, and I did that for probably 2 years with him, and we did loads of stuff and never even took a picture. So he massively influenced. I think, when you're younger, you just can't wait to do everything, right? So it was a pause button. Yeah, I want to take a picture of this, but you know what? Just stop, just for a few seconds, and think about what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And and maybe even write down what you want to do. Like I get people when I teach them photography, because I can teach anybody anything if they want to listen to me, and I know a lot about cameras and stuff. And obviously, if you can shoot for my process, then you get even better results automatically. And so when I go out with people and I help them do that, I get them to write down the colour of the sky, describe the colour of the sky, because once you come away from it, right, you have no idea what it really was at the time.
Yeah.
And like you look at it right now through there, and it's slightly yellowish, right, because it's sunset, and it's got a yellow hue to it. It's got a yellow hue, so you just make a little marker of what colour is the shadows, you know, because with digital cameras, the shadows always go blue, right? It's colour temperature sucks. So, you know, just make a little marker, because that will give you then something to aim at when you're wanging around and painting in whatever software you use afterwards. So from a creative point of view and an intellectual point of view, he was fantastic. And sadly then he died. And then even when I was like at the top of my game, working for Crossfield, travelling around the world everywhere, installing scanning, teaching scanning and systems. And you know, when you're in your early 20s, your head is like this. You know, you didn't know it at the time. But and I was the youngest in the company by about 5 years, because I lied my way into the job. But I had the experience. I had the experience, they said. It's just that I started at 18 instead of 25. So I had to do a lot to get the job. But towards the end of my time, there was a guy that I met just outside New York City, in a little, like Delft maybe, something like that, okay? And I went into this installation, and I was installing this piece of kit called a scan view. It was this thing where you could scan your image into a hard drive and make all your corrections onto it, and then it would send all the data back to the scanner, so you could see the thing before you scanned it. Because for nearly all my time, there's no computer screens on our scanners. You had to just know colour by percentages. But then they invented this thing called a scan view, and this guy came in and he just said, "Don't touch my settings in the scanner." So I went over and I just typed a few things, and I looked at all the input values of the print density curve, luminosity, colour and everything, and it was like totally off the charts. And he just said, "I'm not messing with you, don't touch it. All you guys, you come in here," because obviously many people would have been in from Crossfield, and he said, "You all think you all know everything, but you know shit." And I was just like, wow, I love this. Why? And then we went out to lunch, and we just clicked, I guess. He was an obnoxious. He was obnoxious. I mean, he was just like so difficult to be around. But I needed to teach him this new piece of kit. So he said, "Look, I'll do you a deal. You teach me this piece of kit, and I'll teach you your job." And he showed me how you could, on a drum scanner, you could take a print, and without even looking at it, without measuring it, without even looking at it, you could turn the scanner into a photocopier. So what you did was put the print on the drum, and all he did was he didn't even do what you normally would have to do, like set a white point and a black point. He just went into the insides and typed in a white point and a black point manually, pressed the button, you had to scan it, then make films, then make a chromalin or a match print or whatever proof, and it was facsimile. It was exactly the same in my life, and I was working for the manufacturer, travelling around the world doing this. He did something that I didn't think was possible, because we always would say to companies, you can only expect it to be like 90%. Because inks are different, and we'd have all this big long line of excuses why it couldn't be perfect. And he showed me that it could be perfect. And he didn't actually know technically why his little system worked. And luckily, because if I was working for the manufacturer, I knew exactly why it worked. And that happened to me just at the right time. And that is where the process action came from. And if I'd never have got that job, and you know, life is full of sliding door moments, right? You know, you stay in bed just 30 seconds longer, and then you're not gonna hit that bus or the tram or something. You might miss that person. And if I could have easily have been sent somewhere else, because I used to go to the States for 4 months at a time, and I didn't know where I was going, and I'd get a call and go, Dallas tomorrow, or New York, or whatever. And I just got this job, and it's just 4 days. But if I hadn't have met that person, the pool ball would have gone off in another angle, and I would probably be sitting here wanging around, going, you know, Lightroom's wicked, mate, wang it and brush it in, you know. And so the process all came from that.
Cool.
That one moment with him, that 4 days.
It changed It changed
Yeah.
your life and
Yeah.
it changed the way of thinking.
Because it's all digital.
Yeah,
So it
cool.
doesn't matter if it's good or bad, it's the same all the time. Cool. So you
Yeah.
just make an antidote and you can have whatever you want. So that answers the other question too.
Yeah, yeah.
If you
so-
have a particular trait,
Yeah.
a particular
Oh, my
feeling
butcher,
of the
yeah.
image,
I
you
think-
can build that into an action and you could have it say like 80% efficient probably.
Yeah, cool. It's time for the break, gentlemen.
Sorry, I've
That's no problem.
completely
No problem.
all the time.
My time was different as well because we start up with
Yeah,
a little
a little bit
bit later. So we go into the break now. Just pour yourself a drink or make a pit stop, and we're back in about 10-15 minutes, I think. Yeah,
It's cool.
perfect. I will put the audio out.
Really flying the music. Okay. And it's so packed in here. The band sounds great. Okay. And it's so packed in here. The band sounds great.
Camera's on. The sound is on. I think. I want to do one thing because it looks a little bit light.
Yeah.
And I think the camera is.
It is. It's overexposed slightly.
Yeah, I think somebody messed with my camera.
Oh, who did that? Esther.
It's on here. It's on manual. I know. I did it myself.
Oh, okay.
This afternoon I shot a video with the camera, and then there is in the front of it there is a little
that's
wheel,
better.
and you can with the little wheel you can send the focus.
Yeah.
But I went to exposure instead, and it stayed
Went a
there.
little bit
And
brighter.
now,
Yeah.
So sorry for that, guys.
Are we on now, are we?
We all know, yeah. Yeah, we all know, yeah. Raul.
Oh, I see that you were changing settings.
Yeah, you can see the settings. It's HDMI free, but if you change the settings, the settings will come in. But
Yeah.
the battery is not there and things like that. It's a good one if you go live and you have a camera that not has a clean HDMI. Then you see the battery and you see and it's in your stream as well. So
Okay.
when you go streaming, choose a camera with no with a clear HDMI.
Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna look at some photos from you. You bring
Okay.
the photos to the show,
Yeah.
and it's processed as well with.
Yeah,
the
all
guy
of
Gowan,
all of the
yeah.
pictures are processed with the guy Gowan process action. No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's not a good.
Look, man, I am completely and utterly humbled by the whole thing, and I get really, just massively humbled by it, because that's just what I do, and the fact that other people would see it the same. Because you've been to my stuff. I don't sell anything to
No.
anybody
Yes,
ever.
no.
All I do is simply put two things up and say which one do you think is best, and then
Yes.
if you say this one, I'll teach you how to do it. That's it.
Mhm.
So that's how I would work if I was you. I'm not you.
No.
And then what you just said. It's every day an email will come in, and it's different because I've met you. We know each other,
Yeah.
so there's we know each other. But when I get an email from somebody in Australia and I say, well, what show did you come to? Oh, I didn't. A friend just recommended, and I just love your action. I put every image through it. I mean, God, is there a better thing you could ever wish for? And I still shake my head at it, and so very lucky, really lucky.
Cool. Cool. Here's the
Okay.
first picture.
Yeah. Yeah, you asked me to send some pictures, so I just looked in my folder and selected some different. I brought some studio photos, I brought some wedding pictures and event pictures just to show what is possible with the press action.
Cool.
And now thinking about maybe I should brought also the raw file or the.
Oh, then you can see.
Yeah.
Then you can see the
You get
difference
difference,
between.
yeah.
We can do it
But,
later.
Yeah.
There's
but-
no problem. I
yeah.
think Guy. How do you want? How do you want?
Guy is good.
Guy is good. Yeah. See, I'm confused in my head. Guy. You have some pictures, I think, with a before and after with you.
Yeah, I've
For
just
later
brought
on.
some
Yeah.
workflow stuff.
Yeah, so we can do it. We can do it later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the dance photography, or how do you say it? Couples.
Yeah, I had a couple on the photo shoot. They both are fitness. They both are doing fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted a kind of fitness picture, but together, and then we came to this shot.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, thank you. This is a picture from the. I also do a newborn photography, so this is a picture. Of a little baby, newborn baby with her older sister. I think she's 8, but the family consists of 4 children, 2
Mhm.
boys, twin boys, and a sister. So the sister is very glad that she has a little sister. now.
Little sister
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
because
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of young born babies as well.
newborn babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also that's a little bit unique. Not that I'm the only one, but I think there are not a lot of male newborn photographers.
Yeah.
Usually there are women.
Yeah.
But as a man, I also do.
Yeah. But you get help from your.
Yeah, from my wife in the beginning, but now because we have 2 children ourselves, So I think the last year I always do it myself.
You fold them yourself.
Yes, I fold them myself. I I wrap them myself.
Yeah, you can fold them as well.
Yeah.
You're a little like that.
Yeah,
You
I
put
do
them
it.
together.
Yeah, and I put them to sleep and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Cool.
And maybe it's an advantage that I'm a guy, because with a woman, yeah, I think how you say it. I think it's different. I can't
Mhm.
explain it, but
That's right.
maybe I think a child can feel a difference between a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if it's a woman, it's a good thing, but maybe she also thinks it's a mother, and then maybe the baby feels that you really want that shot,
Mm-hmm.
and you are, and maybe the baby feels that. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think,
I understand what you
yeah, usually I see that the babies are a little bit more quiet or more sleepy with me than with.
You're like a baby whisperer.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, but
Yeah.
cool. I see some cool pictures from you. This so.
Thank you. Yeah. This is
This is a dangerous man.
this is a dangerous man. I also made a book with famous Surinamese people. So this is for the Holland people. I thought let me also bring that. I've made a book with 75 famous people. I brought it over here. This book.
Yeah, this is the first one. Eh?
This is the first one. Yeah, it's the first one with people like Umberto and Gerard Spong and a lot of other people.
Mhm.
And now I'm making a second one, and this is a picture. So actually nobody saw this picture yet.
Oh, so we have a premiere.
Yeah, and
Oh.
I'm showing the picture that is coming in the second book.
Yeah.
So this is a kickboxer, Remy Boyaski.
Yeah, he's a K1.
K1, yeah,
Yeah, K1 kickboxer,
Maybe
yeah.
you know? No, you're not a K1.
It's
no,
he's strong.
he's strong. You
Yeah,
can kick.
he's
You can
strong,
kick
yeah.
your ass.
He can kick. Can kick our ass.
Yes,
as well.
all three.
All of us,
yeah,
yeah.
all three together.
Yeah, cool. Just explain a little bit about the book, from how it works. You take two pictures of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, okay, that's a good thing. So I made a book with the Surinamese people, and there are not only Surinamese people living in Holland, not only living in Suriname, but also living in other parts of the world. So USA, UK, Germany, Belgium, and a lot of other places. And as a photographer, I wanted to make a book of famous people, of famous Surinamese people, because we have a lot of famous soccer players. I don't know if you look soccer or not soccer. No, not at all. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have about soccer, you have Ruud Gullit, Clarence Seedorf, and that kind of guys.
Mm.
But usually they say they are from Holland, but actually they are from Suriname.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we have another kind of specialties like. He's a kickboxer and other
Kickboxer,
kind of stuff.
TV presenters.
Yes,
and
exactly.
yeah.
And I wanted to make a book with all these people. But as a photographer, I didn't want to make a book for hey, these are other people. But I wanted to show another side of those persons.
Mhm.
So I asked, for example, he is a kickboxer, Remy Boyaski, and I asked him, can you tell me something a lot of people, the most people don't know of you? Yeah.
Mhm.
So he also makes and edits.
It's like a confession.
Yeah,
right?
confession.
And,
Yeah.
and you make a word joke with
Yeah.
confession.
Yeah,
with your
exactly.
title of
Yes.
of the book.
Yeah, this for the Dutch people is the title is Suriname bekend, and bekend is two meanings. Bekend is famous.
Yeah,
There are
famous,
famous people, or bekend with a T is they're confessing.
Yeah, confession.
Famous people confessing in picture.
Yeah, the Dutch word lends to both sides of the
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the middle.
Yeah. So
Oh, cool.
so that is that's the story about the book.
So Remy
Yeah,
does a lot of filming.
Yeah, film editing. Yeah,
Cool.
film editing. That's his secret. So as something you don't expect from someone who kicks you
No,
ass.
no.
He
If the
also-
film if the film doesn't work, he kicks around. Yeah.
he kicks around.
Cool.
This is from a show, an event I shot. But here's one of the powerful. I think this. I see the power of the process action a lot in my studio photography, but mostly in my event or in my wedding photography. Then it is really awesome because of the dynamic range. I don't really need the dynamic range in studio because the lighting is already good, and usually we have
It's less,
it's less.
but you still need it.
Yeah, I need
You
it.
just need less.
Yeah, I need less.
That's
Yeah,
all.
because
You're in controlled environment.
yes, control
As soon as you're in
environment,
an
and the
uncontrolled
and
environment.
the background is usually what do you call it, one
Flat
color.
or
Yeah,
white.
flat. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
But in these kind of situations, there's so much, not only with your subject, but in the background there's also a lot of things happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that is why I love the process action. Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, this is a
Yeah,
really
especially with
picture.
events. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with events and wedding pictures. Yeah, I really like it. Yeah, also one of the book, Natalia Rose.
Hmm.
That is
For the new one.
for the new book. Yeah,
Cool.
Natalia Rose is a singer from the song Somebody. I
Mhm.
don't know if you know the song.
It's not ringing a
If,
bell.
no, if you
But
if you
if you
hear the song, you yeah,
definitely
guaranteed
gonna
you will
hear
know
it.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
She has a number with Florida. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's Florida.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
So is she living in Holland or
she's living in LA, in
LA,
USA. Yeah.
did you fly to LA?
No, she came here.
Oh, okay.
She was
That's
here.
good.
She's very often in Holland, and one of the times that she was here, I've did a
You met her and
Yeah,
you
I-
arranged the shoot.
yeah. She came to my studio. I did a photo shoot and did an interview with her. So
Cool.
yeah, this was really nice.
Cool.
Yeah. And the pictures wouldn't be this lovely without the process action.
Yeah.
Not really true, because before I met
Yeah.
I also at contrast and my levels and curves, but the thing I love about action is that it's really quick. But, yeah, this is, and also the dynamic range, as, the shadows and highlights. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the best thing you get out of it instead of not using the?
The speed
Mhm.
and the quality. Yeah, the quality. Everything is inside. You have what are the highlights, the shadows, the sharpness. You have a boost and coloring.
Clean boost.
Yeah,
Clean boost.
clean and boost, and
The hue.
and the dynamic range.
Yeah.
Yeah, the range, the HS. I think I'm using the old one. I don't know if you have
Yeah.
added if you added more stuff to the
Oh, tons more.
tons more.
Tons.
Okay.
Tons more.
It's getting longer
Yeah,
and
it's
longer and
longer and
longer.
longer.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I disappeared down a rabbit hole, I think, with it in the great scheme of things. And the next, I'm going to finish the one that is the beta at the moment.
Mhm.
I'm going to get that finished
Okay.
because I have to. People have waited a very long time for it, and I need to finish it. But I've already got like 2 or 3 versions ahead in my head already of things where I know I can make it better already, and that's like really frustrating. Where I have to finish one, and that was an idea I had 3 years ago. And I'm going, why am I doing this? This is crap, right?
Yeah.
I can now build the better one where I don't need to do this, but obviously I have to do it. So yeah, I mean, it'll never stop. And every time I think that I've reached the ceiling, when I know I can, and then I think to myself, what will I do now? I mean, what am I going to do next? Then I call it a 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, when you wake up and you go, need a toilet. And you're standing there and you're just like half asleep and you go, holy crap.
Yep. Yep.
If I do this, and this, that will be better.
But
So I had something massive to it last time, to the new action, and it
Yeah.
raises the game of every single step in the action by about 30%. It's the biggest improvement of quality ever in any of them.
Cool.
But it does about 200 steps on every single image, so it's very
Okay.
dependent. The speed is dependent on the
Computer.
computer.
Mm.
Okay.
But because it's automated, it can happen when you're doing a job, when you're asleep, and it happens without you. So it's cool.
Yeah. And otherwise
But
you can
it's
buy
so
a second computer and let them run in the other.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the workshop I saw you at, I remember I used to say, the idea is that if you could batch process, say a wedding, let's just use a wedding because that's a big number these days, 500 images, and 50% of them you didn't have to change, that would be good, right?
Yeah.
If 50% of them were just okay, really good, and you only had to micro adjust 50% of them, that'd be great. Now it's up to about 85%. And even I wouldn't have said that like 5-6 years ago, because that wouldn't have been in my head that it could have been that good. Well, that's not my opinion, that's the people who use it. They say, you know, I did 700 images and I only had to reprocess 20. That's a good
that's a good
average
number,
from a not money making, but from a business orientated headspace.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good, and that's much higher than I would have thought. But that's what the customers are getting. The members of the website are getting. So.
Cool. Just a curious question: do you dream in the numbers of Photoshop and things like that? Sometimes you got the question if you I played the game Tetris a long time ago,
Yeah.
and then you go to sleep and in your
And then
sleep
you
you are
You're
still
playing
playing Tetris.
Oh,
do
no,
you do
no,
it?
yeah.
Do you do it with Photoshop and things like that? Is it in your?
No. No, but the thing is, when you know your subject, because I hate Photoshop. Photoshop is a really crap tool in comparison to 30 years ago, when the equivalent of Photoshop would have cost you £500,000. Photoshop is a joke. Okay, and you've been to my workshop. I don't use anything under the image adjust menu, right? I don't use curves, because curves suck and blow at the same time. I mean, they're useless. What I do is I add things to all the features of Photoshop, which are non-standard things. I have my way of going about it, and that I only have my way of going about it because of where I come from, and that's only because I'm in my 50s. If I was 30 sitting here today, none of this would exist. None of it. We'd all just be sitting, playing around, wanging, going, wow, isn't it brilliant? And, and it's all about frame of reference. And I was just lucky that I had that time, that set an idea of what quality is. And I've got the images, obviously we'll show later to show.
Yeah.
And so, there's no way I could be happy with a wang bar in a piece of software. And Photoshop is just as bad as all of them. But because Photoshop has channels, you can do some really cool stuff. So I think more about channels. I don't think about features in software. I just think, but if I did that in a different order, it's like cooking. I don't know if you cook.
Yeah, I cook.
So when you cook something, whenever I cook, I love cooking. Every time I do anything, I always think, how do I make it better? No matter how great it was, even if it's the best thing I ever cooked, I always know I can make it better. And in my education of working, it was always when I worked professionally, when you did an ad campaign, when you did a magazine, when you did anything in your work, we always had a debrief. And the debrief was we'd get around the table with all the people involved and we would say, what if we were our competitor? How would we pull it apart? How would we improve it next time? Because normally the customer just goes, yeah, it's brilliant. They give you the money and you go, yeah, I'm brilliant. And then you go on to the next job. We wouldn't do that. We would just say, what could we have done better? How could we have done it quicker? How could we have used less consumables? And how could we have done it differently? No matter how good it was. And it's the same as cooking. It's an intricate recipe sometimes. Like Asian cooking, I love that because there were so many little spices.
Yeah.
And even the order in which you put them in changes the end game. And the process is exactly the same. Exactly the same. There's so many steps it does, but they're all incremental. So if you just you reverse them sometimes, it maybe at the time will make a 0.01% difference, but once it's gone through the whole rest of the process, it makes like a 5% difference. So that's the thing. That's the stuff I think about.
Changing plans.
Why am I doing that? You idiot! You could do this instead. You've been doing that just because of habit, because it always worked before, and you never questioned it. No. So I like that. That's the stuff I think about.
Cool. Should we get a picture of you?
Of me? You want to get a picture of me?
Yeah, I already had in
Okay. Yeah, we'll have a bit of fun. No one can see us at this time, right? So, so I'm just going to ask a question here. This is just a tiny little excerpt of how I teach and what I would teach. So there we go. We've got a victim in the room. So you're into photography, right?
No.
Not really.
No?
No.
Intern? Friend?
How you call it?
I thought you.
Kind of
Oh,
PA.
okay, right, okay.
Yeah.
So, when we can't use you then, sorry. So I would put this up in my workshops, and any of the members who might be here, or anybody that's ever been to my workshops, did I do this? Have you ever seen this image before?
I've seen this.
You probably have, so you know what I'm going to say, right? So if I was to ask you here, what camera was used to take that shot?
Yeah, maybe they can answer it in the chat.
Why don't we? Give me an idea of what camera you think was used to take that shot. And
just put your answer in the chat, and the one who's right, no, gets the washing machine. No,
washing machine.
No.
Shall we go and get another beer while
Yeah,
we're
we're
waiting?
gonna take one away if you want. No problem.
No, not at all. More than one would be very dangerous. So basically, we could all guess as to what kind of camera took that, and it could, when it's in this context, okay, and this is really important. This is a psychological point I'm trying to make here.
Mm-hmm.
When it's in this is the end game. This is it in context. That's when you can see the whole image.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to say because it could be any camera. So you could choose from about 50 different cameras, and there'd be a percentage chance that your guess could be right.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next version of that picture. As soon as we put it in actual pixels, if you've got that one, then it's a completely different ball game. I mean, a completely different ball game. As soon as you see that, I mean, the square picture, the crop of square. You know what happens in workshops? People go, "Oh, it's a Hasselblad." Not because of the quality of the image, because it's square.
Yeah.
No, I cropped it to be square. It wasn't. You don't know whether it was cropped. You know what I mean? It's like that's something I did. But then when you see the image like that, it's completely different. And if we just go back away from that picture.
To the next one. To the
No.
previous
We've
one?
just come away from it completely. The answer to it is that it's not a camera of today. That image is something like 25 years old. In the graphic design digital revolution, had nothing to do with digital photography. That's a 2¼ inch transparency scanned in on a crossfield scanner. That's what quality used to be.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
Somebody says here 35mm film.
Yeah. Well, no, they're right. I mean, it's film. It's film, and the problem is, as time goes on, there's less and less and less people who have ever seen that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I would say that the angst that I have, the difficulty that I have, is because I know it's possible to have images. I'm not talking about the composition or the lighting or anything else. I'm talking about the reproduction of the detail.
The quality of the detail, yeah.
And there is not a single camera on the planet today that can do that today. And those cameras cost hundreds of times more than the equipment that was used to grab that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I see all this shit that's flying around about this is better, that's worse, you should do this, you should do that. Yeah, but what do you have in your head of what you're trying to aim at? You know? And so I can't help it, but pretty much for 10 years of my life, every single image I ever scanned and retouched and manipulated looked like that before I touched it.
Yeah. It's different shit.
It's really hard to be really, it's really hard to look at the kit that we have today and just go, wow, isn't it brilliant? Because actually it's a big step back. But the difference with film was you were chasing your tail because of the developing process. Cameras are digital now, so they do the same thing every time. So I can do more today than I ever dreamt I could have done 20, 30 years ago.
In the unlock.
So I think the next shot, if there is such a shot, there you go. So this is my workflow. Entirely, this is my workflow. The top left is the original RAW that came off my camera. I think the point here, the point I should have made on the previous one is I asked what camera took it, but there's also other questions that you could say too. If we just go back to that one, the top left is the original. You would have to ask me what my camera is, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because you can't tell what camera I use.
No.
So then my philosophy is, because I'm not a photographer, then what doesn't matter what camera you use,
who
right?
cares? Yeah.
Because cameras don't leave a lasting trait within the image that says, hey, that was a Nikon, that was a Canon, that was a Hasselblad. You can't tell. You always have to ask. So if you have to ask, it doesn't matter, does it? What lens was used? Can you tell by looking at a picture what lens was used?
I think a wide angle.
Yeah, wide angle, but
Yeah.
not
which one. Not which brand.
One. No, you can't.
No.
No, you can't. So it's irrelevant.
16.
Absolutely irrelevant.
I think Canon.
And when you can only tell the difference between one lens and another and a camera and another by zooming it up 40,000 times when you see these reviews, it's irrelevant, because the only time the image means anything is when it's in context, when you can see it. It's in its end game.
Yeah.
And that's when it's in the publication, because when you look at a picture here, any picture that you have here, it's going to be influenced by what's on the spread.
Yeah.
So when you do graphic design, it's like where you place your images and how big and the proportions they are. Size of the image determines contrast, because if you made that image really, really small, the perception of contrast will change on scale. But we do device-independent retouching, don't we? People retouch their pictures without any thought about where they're going to be used.
Yeah. What the end game is for the picture.
Yeah. So to me, the only thing that matters is the end game. So if we go back to that picture, the top left is the raw, so you can see it's all blown out in the sky. This used to be just down the road of where I used to live. It was literally only 2 kilometres, and we ran a really big photographic event there. It was really cool. Markery Castle in Ireland. And then, so it bears no resemblance to what I was looking at. So when I go back to walking the planet with my friend John, and we would just talk about what do you see, what detail do you see? You see the wispy clouds, you see the detail in the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my camera sees shit, right? I mean, it doesn't see anything that I can see. So the only thing that I allow me or anybody who works for me and I try and educate people to do is in raw converters is only change exposure and color temperature, because that's an extension of the camera.
Yeah.
That's it, nothing else. So there's no playing around with wang bars, there's no painting on masks, there's no nothing. And so I go from the top left to the top right in 3 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So all I do is go to the exposure, no recovery, and no highlights and blacks and all that kind of stuff, just one thing, exposure, to bring the highlight detail back in the sky. And then you can see on that picture, the top right hand is just crucified now when it comes to the shadows.
Yeah.
But in one press of the button, and it takes, depending on your computer, on my computer where I did this today, it took about 15 seconds. It does about 200, maybe 240 little micro changes, and you end up with the one on the bottom. So that's what would happen if you went to sleep, and then that was a part of the batch process. And nobody that is a Lightroom user would even have the expectation that it could be like that after 15 seconds. They don't even think that even exists in our universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't see the image necessarily at the bottom as being the one that's finished. I just see that as being something that looks really damn close to what I was looking at. So now let's start retouching.
Yeah, and then you can.
Because now I can be creative. Now I can say, I want to just create more separation in the sky. I want to make it a little bit more drama in it around the front of the building. I want to do this. That's the stuff I love, because that's retouching.
Mm-hmm.
Wanging around in levels and curves isn't retouching.
No.
That's fixing somebody else's camera problem. So that's mind-numbingly boring, and if I can automate that, I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's it. So all I've got are the bigger versions of each of those if you would just want to go through them quickly. So,
yeah, you can see it.
So, you know, that's what it is in camera, and everything you do when you're not in control of the light, and your point earlier about being in a studio, you know, in a studio you're in control. But how many pictures as a percentage are taken in non-controlled environments? In, you know, social photography, wedding photography, the number of shots taken on each job are all like that, right? Because if you put a bride and groom on the grass there, you're screwed, aren't you? Yeah. So, you know, and so I build my action based on the worst case scenario, which is wedding photography, and then if it works in that, then it will work on anything, right?
Yeah.
So, and then if you go to the next one, then you'll see that's what it is in aperture when I just say minus 1.5 in the exposure, brings back true 100%, no recovery, just 1.5 in the highlights. And then when you go to the next picture,
that's the process.
on whatever screen you've got there, it looks very different to how it looked on mine. But anyway, it doesn't matter, it's fine. But that isn't something I would have submitted to you if it was going to look like that. But
this screen is a gift, so I don't.
I don't know what's actually going out, but it doesn't normally look like that. But the thing is, the bottom line is that you've got all the highlight detail, and even more importantly, you've got even more better shadow detail than there was in the original shot, which was overexposed.
Yeah.
So, and if you can do that from a single shot every single time. That's what I do.
Especially when you're sleeping and you get your stuff going.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, do you want the one on the top left or the one at the bottom, you know? And if you can get the one on the bottom only using 15 seconds of your intellect and time, you have a much better image to start working on.
Yeah, you got a good base.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
what it's all about.
We've got a question here. The green shirt looks great. Where can I get it? They want to have it.
How they have it?
Yeah.
That could be the prize, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that can be the
A
price.
question
Yeah.
that's on
It's
you.
from Esther Amat.
I don't know the price, but there's written Nacho here and something like nachosportswear.com.
Okay.
Nacho sportswear.
You can set the link in.
Yeah, we
below
can
or
put the
something.
link.
I just wish I'd known you was wearing that because I'd be wearing my All Black.
All black. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the All Black rugby team.
Okay.
Favourite rugby team. And the All
Okay.
Blacks are just gods.
Cool. And they where they are situated?
Well, they're from New Zealand. You
New
don't know
Zealand.
anything about rugby. So just
Nope.
for anybody who's watching, if you're into rugby and you like the All Blacks, or I guess any rugby, but All Blacks play real rugby, watch the Richie McCall video, Chasing Great. It is an amazing bit of filmmaking.
Cool.
And the editing, when they edit a match down to 30 seconds, is superb editing. It's fantastic. But
Cool.
that is he was the most successful rugby player probably ever, and he was the captain of the All Blacks for
Okay.
over 10 years, and
Okay.
the All Blacks jerseys, I've got 3 of them, and that they are just like folded and they're in plastic bags, and but I would have worn it today.
Okay.
But rugby is
Next
different than American football, right?
Oh god, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's exactly the same, but with no pads and no
Yeah.
helmets.
No-
It's exactly
no,
the same. It's
okay.
full contact
Okay.
with no diving and no. Oh my leg.
I think there's less injuries than normal football.
Oh yeah, yeah,
In-
yeah.
in rugby,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, most of the injuries in normal football are just fake anyway. these
Zwalbe,
days.
yeah.
These days.
Yeah. Hey, do you get to see new features before the new releases are released?
I used to for 8 years. I mean, I think my days with Adobe spans something like Photoshop 4.
Mm-hmm.
When I started representing Adobe as a consultant, and I would do the product releases. So yes, I would be involved. I would get to see. I'd get to know what some of the features of the beta would be before I would see the beta. And in those days, Adobe never ever did public betas, ever. Period. Adobe's very first ever step into doing a public beta was Lightroom,
Mm-hmm.
and they only did that as a reaction to Aperture coming on the market, rushing it onto the market because they were so scared of Aperture getting a march on them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I used to, but there's no point really being involved in betas because beta is when they've already decided what's going in it. Once I was involved in a meeting at Heathrow Airport. I was invited to a meeting of people in the industry by Adobe, and the head of Photoshop came over, and we had a meeting. This was before mobile phones, laptop computers, and all that stuff. So we were drawing graphs and diagrams on a flip chart, and so what would go into Photoshop 4? What would go into Photoshop 4? What do we need? What does the industry need? And I said we need channel switching. We need to be able to switch channels, and it'd be great if there was a utility where we could switch the red, green and blue within a mask to change the colour of things. And he went, yeah, but we've got hue and saturation, why do we need that? You know, had no concept of anything really. And that was just a real eye-opening moment that I just thought, I'm wasting my time. And then the irony was that they didn't put it in Photoshop 4, but they put it in Photoshop 5 channel mixer.
Okay.
So I can't say that the presentation I did when I drew on a flip chart why you need to switch channels to do color correction for product photography, which is huge, right?
Mhm.
Huge in everyday life. Wanging around with hue and saturation just kills the detail, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can make it a color, but you kiss goodbye to the detail.
Yeah.
We can switch channels, and the only problem is with switching channels, you need to know color theory. It's really hard. So they brought out Channel Mixer, which I went, oh my god, he listened. But then they put this stupid little button in there that said monochrome. And then so everybody thought that it was a tool for making black and whites, and it makes really shit black and whites. It makes crap black and whites. So, but the tool is a really good one. So that was the only time I ever had any half meaningful conversation with them about new features and what should go in it. But I learnt really quickly they don't listen to anybody.
No.
Because these big companies, all they want to do is sell software. They don't want to put something in their software that requires people to go off and learn something. They just want to put something in there where all you have to do is go, how much do I want?
Yeah.
That's where it's going. So it's a dumbing down of the skill set. It's not an enhancement of it.
Yeah.
And when you look at the most popular piece of software on the planet, bar none, it's Lightroom.
Yeah, I think a
And
lot
people
of
teach themselves
yeah.
Lightroom.
No, I think a lot of photographers use a lot of filters on their pictures, but they don't know they don't know how to make it by themselves. They just
Yeah.
click on the button.
Well, you see, I asked the question, why do you want to stick a filter on it?
Oh.
Because filters was never a part of life before,
No.
when I was working professionally, period, never.
No.
Filters to me, and the psychology of it, is when you're unfulfilled in your image, when it doesn't hit the sweet
Yeah.
spot here and make you go, wow, aren't I brilliant? Let's disguise the fact that
Yeah.
it has shortcomings,
Yeah.
and let's put, like, I mean, this is a little script that I've been doing, anybody that's seen my workshops for a long time. How many times have you done this, okay? So you can watch his reaction, right? He probably doesn't know what I'm going to say. So
Gotta
you're a
put the
photographer.
camera.
You're a photographer
Yeah,
too.
I'm
So how many times have you done this? You've got a picture from a wedding
Mhm.
or a shoot when you're not in control of anything, or even like when you go to a
Yeah.
stage set and you've got all these different lights, and you're really struggling with the color and
Black
the
and
color
white.
temperature, and you just go black and white because
Yeah.
in your head you've got a clock ticking, and
Yeah.
you're just going, shit, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'll make it a black and white.
But that's
So my argument would be, I would say, at least over 50% of all black and whites were never meant to be black and white.
that is what I
They ended
think,
up
yeah.
being black and
Yeah.
whites of an act of convenience, not
Yeah.
because from a creative point of view it was deemed to be, that's right. And if there's any wedding photographers out there, I know you're all saying the same thing, and I'm not slagging anybody off for doing this, because it's the correct thing to do in business. Don't invest any more time. I've spent 2 minutes trying to get the right thing. I can't, so make it black and white, get rid of the
Mm.
problem. Well, that's how I see special effects. Black and white is a special effect, right?
Yeah.
Stripping away colour is an effect.
Yeah.
So when I see all these aged things and everything, and they go, oh yeah, I love that. And I go, how can you love it? It's because you don't know how to do reality.
Yeah.
Because if you knew how to do facsimile to reality, like the clouds, the
Yeah.
building, the trees, if you could get your images looking like how you saw them, you'd have no need to put special effects on it. You'd be happy with it. You'd be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Boom,
maybe
boom.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it is hoe zeg je gevaarlijke uitspraak?
It's
Dangerous uitspraak.
yeah. If you say something, gevaarlijke uitspraak. Yeah.
No, anyway,
Anyway.
maybe it can come in a wrong kill.
Wrong, yeah.
Anyway,
It's difficult.
yeah, but I think it's more challenging to make a nice picture in color than in black and white.
Because the psychology of us
Yeah.
reading and being influenced by colour
Yeah.
is so much harder. And then the problem with nearly everybody in the industry today, they have no idea what colour is.
Yeah,
So what happens when you put red and green together? What colour does it make?
white maybe.
No, you see,
No?
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I'm in front of 2,000 people, 10,000 people, or 10 people.
Purple.
It is only a guess.
Yeah.
And that's not a criticism of anybody. It's a criticism of the industry and the software that we use today. It doesn't teach us anything. It doesn't teach you anything. You have no idea what colour it makes.
Mhm.
So how can you really make something in a mode when you don't understand it? and the other bit of the psychology of humans is, once we've been doing something for a long time and being paid, we tend to think we're an expert, right? So you go, oh yeah, but I've been in the industry for 25 years. Yeah, but you've been doing it crap for 25 years too, right? So I mean, just because you've done it 25 years doesn't mean to say that you know the theory of something. It just means you've got a recipe that works.
Yeah.
And I know that's
You
how
get
I
away
was
with
when I was a scanner operator.
Yeah.
The rubbish that I used to say when I'd go into town for a drink at the end of Friday, and I'd say, yeah, I use a laser and I do this and I do that. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that if I pressed 3 buttons in the right sequence, it came out as okay. I got all the glory, but I understood nothing.
Mhm.
And I would just say that would be the vast majority of people. But we all talk about, oh look, it's too yellow, it's too this, it's too that. But to be able to correct something from its incorrect state, you have to understand what colour is. And software hasn't taught anybody anything when it comes to colour theory, and that's
Mhm.
the problem. So,
Get us a lesson in color theory.
the problem with colour theory is, I get this a lot. People say, what book do I have to get to learn colour theory? And the problem is, you can go and learn the science of colour, the electromagnetic spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't teach you anything in terms of applied theory where you can go and apply that to Photoshop. It's from doing it, and I only know it the way I know it because for probably 15 years professionally, and then teaching and educating and developing and working in R&D, we never saw a colour picture before it was printed. It only ever became colour on the printing press. Yet we would scan it and originate in black and white, 4 black and whites, pieces of film. One would get printed in yellow, one magenta, one cyan, one black. And you would look at the size of the dot with a magnifying glass, and you'd be able to visualise it's the right colour green. And then when it was wrong, you go, yeah, we need to do it again and put another 10% yellow in.
Cool.
So it's trying to get colour right is really difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
There's a question from Suka Portrait. What do you guys do in your post-processing to the final print and image and match the result that you see on your screen without the margin and yes, with a calibrating monitor?
Okay.
What do you do
Okay.
in your post-processing?
Yeah. I do nothing with calibration. I don't have a calibrated monitor or calibrated printers. So no, I don't. Yeah, I don't do anything.
You do it on eye or you do
on
it
eye, and this, the way I see it on my screen, I go to the professional printing the
Company,
lab, the
yeah.
lab, and it's for me it looks the same.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
output is what matters,
Yeah.
right? It's the
Yeah.
output that
Output,
matters.
yeah.
It's what it looks like in here,
Yeah.
or it looks like in the print. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the screen.
No,
Because it's irrelevant. You don't sell the image on your screen.
no.
Yeah, that's my view too.
Oh.
I mean, I have all the calibrating equipment, but I don't use it very often.
Mhm.
Because in the whole ethos of colour management, I wouldn't want to downgrade my final image to the capability of my monitor.
Mm-hmm.
I know a few people at manufacturers of screens might have something to say about
Yeah.
that, but it doesn't really matter.
No.
It's irrelevant. So I know what it's going to be on the output, so you
Yeah.
build a compensation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you have an unqualified calibrated screen, but you know what the output's
Yeah.
going to be, then you just know what you're looking at with a compensation in your mind, don't you?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how everybody's ever worked in colour.
And that's why I always like your way of taking, because you always work in sRGB.
Yeah.
And a lot of photographers work in Adobe RGB.
Yeah.
And I think they're it's how you call it, a battle, because you usually work for consumers, and they always work in sRGB. And usually I see on Facebook or on other photographers on workshop, you always have problems with the color space.
Absolutely.
Because the picture looks too red or something, because they're
Yeah.
using the wrong color space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But also where you convert an image. You see, if you're in a closed loop,
Yeah.
colour management's perfect if you're in
Yeah.
a closed loop. But there are a few people who work in a closed loop. So that means you publish yourself, or it's a known target publishing environment.
Yeah.
Most of us are in an open loop, so you don't know where your image is going to be, and you have no control. You have no way of locking an image
Yeah.
against and protecting it from somebody in a graphic design company just going, oh, I prefer Adobe sRGB, or I prefer, Adobe 1998 or whatever it is.
Mhm.
If you have an image, if you supply an image in sRGB and then you convert it in Photoshop to Adobe 1998, it's absolutely crap. I mean, it's awful. If you do the workflow correctly and you take an image and in the camera, okay, and
Yeah.
you tag the image, the raw file with
Adobe.
sRGB
sRGB.
or Adobe, and you do 2 parallel workflows, but you start at the beginning with that correct color space and you go through the raw converter, so it's sRGB and then Adobe 1998, you'll see only about maybe 1% difference between the two in 99% of the pictures you'll ever take. There is no difference.
Yeah.
The time you see a really big difference is when somebody's gone and changed the mode after it's been rendered. So when it comes out of the raw program, what color space it is then is what it has to be throughout the rest of its life.
Yeah.
If you change it afterwards, you kill it. That's why a lot of people get really fed up with their images going on the web. So they do their images in, say, like
Adobe Pro Photo.
sRGB or
Yeah.
Pro Photo or something, and then it goes to a script or something in a web development company, and they just have an automated process that will take all of their images and batch process it into what they think is the right color
Mhm.
space. Your images doesn't stand a chance then.
No.
So
There's a question about the raw converter. If raw converters are limited to your creative process, why don't you develop a raw converter yourself?
me, yeah, you wouldn't be the first person that asked that, and most of the membership would love it if I would. And the amount of emails I get based on raw converters, because I don't really. I know this is going to be a strange thing, but I don't care. I just don't care. I mean, and that puts me in a really lucky, fortunate position. I think I don't care. I'm not a photographer. I'm not anything anymore. I've done litho. I've done print. I've done graphic design. I did web. Did video. Then photography went. Every time one of these industries went through a digital revolution, I was a part of it. And then once I've learned all the software for video editing and stuff, well then obviously then I start doing that as a freelancer because I know how to edit video.
Yep.
So I've done tons of that stuff. And then you just move on, and then now the revolution that is still, I suppose it's already happened, but it's still a bit of a nightmare, is the photography one. And so I just happened to be a part of that, but I'm not in it because I sat there and went, oh, I always want to work in that. So I just don't care. I will just help anybody do better with whatever it is they're doing, with whatever kit they've got. So if you use Capture, that's great. If you use this, you use this. The problem with building software is that I was at a point about 5-6 years ago where we decided we were going to make software. I just don't want to run a software company. You know? I like teaching.
Yeah.
I like that. People probably would have thought, oh, he's probably dating him with all the times you've said no process and stuff like that. But that's, you can't buy that. No, you can't buy it, and I'm not interested in software.
No.
And the problem is, if I made my utopic piece of software, I'd never get anybody to use it because it would mean you'd have to learn something. And people today don't want to learn anything, right? And they teach themselves how to use software. And I just go, what? I mean, when you have a child and the child reaches 17, you don't just throw a set of keys to it and say, hey, go and teach yourself how to drive, do you? And in a car, there's 4 variables.
Yeah.
A drunk monkey could fall from a tree and teach yourself to drive, right? In post-production of imaging, there are probably, I reckon, at least 20 times more variables than there are in photography. A camera is a hole in the shutter and ISO.
Yeah.
It's 3 variables. How the hell can you not work that out for yourself? I mean, it's 3 variables by process of elimination, right? And then when it comes to everything else, it's like, my God. So yeah, I think if I was 20 and I had this knowledge, which I wouldn't have had, but if I did have this knowledge at 20, I'd probably want to make software. But I'm in my 50s and I haven't got enough life left. So I like that penny drop moment I see in someone's face when they just simply have a conversation with them and they go, oh my God. You wouldn't get that with software because I'd be the same as Adobe.
Even kijken hoor, there was a question about the black and white.
Yeah.
How come that a picture in color seems okay, and after making black and white, I think, whoa.
You think, whoa.
That's what Marco says, yeah.
Yeah. Whoa good or whoa bad?
Yeah,
my guess is whoa good.
I think whoa good, my guess, yeah. Marco,
again,
do you need...
No, I think he's right. Yeah. Well, the first thing is, I mean, black and white is a speciality subject for me. I mean, I specialise in black and white. I've actually got some here. They're from a member of the website. And when you look at his images on Instagram, and I embarrass the hell out of him all the time because look, his Instagram, okay, so I will answer the question in a minute. So, flat, boring and horrible. Also, it's got recovery in it because it just looks like shit. So I'm not talking about the composition or the picture. It's just the reproduction of the picture. That's what I care about. I don't care where it comes from. So obviously on here, no shadow detail whatsoever. It's just useless. Bit of a video. And then you go through here. This is one of the best restaurants in Sligo, Sweet Beat. Oh my God, I miss Sweet Beat. And then you go through here. No, it's an image. It's just an image. And then you go through here. And I know it's coming up in a minute because there it is. Look, it just grabs you, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, the vibrance
and that's what I see when I look to your book. Your images pop. They jump off the page. So it teleports me back 30 years to when I worked in retouching studios and stuff, and the client would come in and say, yeah man, it's flat, make it jump off the page, give it some life. Look at the life of that picture. I don't look at it from a quality point of view, but when you look at this guy's black and whites, man, oh man, it's really cool. I'm sorry I can't show you this,
you can show it in the camera here in this one.
But
if you show it to the camera.
Let me just find one.
Even kijken, was there a question?
So black and white, when you look at it, it drags you. Yeah. You show it. If you can show that.
I would do it like this.
Yeah, do it like that. So, love it. You know, black and white, by definition, black and white is black and white. That says the word contrast without saying contrast. And the problem with digital today is that you can't do contrast without losing detail.
This was the
Because
picture.
the only way of doing contrast is with an S shape or a wang bar.
Yeah, this was the picture you said here. Look at these pictures with the contrast.
Yeah, you know, they're pictures
And
and they're
then-
just flat, they're flat, they're flat, they're boring, they're flat, they're boring, they're flat, they're boring, then suddenly pang. And the thing is, I'm not a big user of social media. Well, I'm beginning to do it a bit more. And I went on Instagram and I start going through the pictures, and then the picture that popped out, I didn't really remember his name, that I would know him as a member. And then when I looked closer, and then I saw his name in my purchasing kind of database, I went, shit, he's a web member. So I then got in touch with him and said, hi, how you doing? But
What happened to my camera?
you did something to the camera. Oh, it's in auto.
Holy
You've got it in auto colour balance.
Hey!
You need a piece of white
You
paper.
need color collection.
You
Color
need a
correction.
piece of white paper.
Only white?
Oh no, no. Yeah, that made it happen. You need.
Is a white laptop as well?
Yeah, white laptop would be good. Just bring that closer.
Something
That's
further.
it. Closer, closer, and then that will hopefully do it. Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, talk about better. It's not.
It's better.
It's better.
It's actually, yeah, it's better than it was before. It's got some warmth to it, which is good. But yeah, black and white. What I try to do is, because I've spent 15 years now with this process action, trying to make it that you can do that crappy term HDR, but with a single shot. Although the webcast that I did this week was, I gave a lecture on my philosophy of having multi-shot images, because when you're doing interior photography you need multi-shot because the range is way too big. And I built a little action, a utility that helps you do that, and that went down really well this week.
Cool.
But black and white, it's always at the expense of detail. So what's the point in trying to keep all that detail in the highlights and shadows and then throw it away by making it black and white to get it black and white? So I've got contrast without losing the detail, which is just mad. And that's now 4 years old, that action. So the one that's in my head that I'm going to be building probably in the next couple of months is just going to be mind-blowing.
Cool.
It'll be very different to what we're doing already.
Yeah, he
But-
says, wow, good. Wow and good. So
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, black and white photography, there is the psychology of black and white is that we view it in a different way. We view it in terms of detail, and our minds, I think, are not processing the complication of seeing colours, and when you take that away, it's purer, in a sense. And I really like it. I mean, I had no comprehension of why anybody would want to do a black and white until I came into the photography world, and it's only by being in a photography world I even appreciate a black and white, because I learned how to do colour. So why would you want to learn how to do it in colour and then throw that away and make it black and white? It's like crazy, when most black and whites are made usually because people can't get it right in colour. But now because of the members really, for them and people I meet at workshops, yeah, black and white's a huge thing. And then when I do my consultancy in the early days, I used to work at a lot of photographic studios, and one particular one, the best one I've ever worked at, in just outside Dublin. I mean, they really were good, and they pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. There's very few companies I've been into and they go, yeah, it's okay, but it's not quite good enough. You know, most of the time I walk in and you just give them nice, easy stuff, and they go, wow, thanks so much, I'll see you in 6 months. But this company went, no, because they were comparing it always to film black and white. And they wouldn't go digital, not because of not understanding the kits, because digital black and whites were rubbish in comparison to film black and whites. So we needed to create a very mechanical system that would spit out a consistent high quality product without human intervention, without judgment calls. It took me about 6 months, and I learned more by working with the darkroom operator, because I knew nothing about that. I mean, I'd made black and whites, physically made them in film in my litho days, but not from a photographic perspective, making the end game, because my black and whites were used to be scanned in, turned into dots for printing. But now I have a really good appreciation of black and whites, and the new one will be really good.
I like them as well. But you say it all the time, black and white then you make shit. And you make black and white.
yeah.
It's okay.
I
yeah.
think it's a solution for exactly if you screw it up with your color picture, then you turn it in black and white.
No, but your level of interpretation of the scene
Yeah.
and your appreciation of the detail is completely different when you remove the color.
Mm.
Because I think when subconsciously you have a process in your processing of an image when you see it in color when it's being reproduced,
Yeah.
if one of the colors is not quite right, and we call them memory colors.
Yeah.
Okay, so say like skin tones, it's
Mhm.
classic. So if I go through here, you know, I was looking at it before we started, and obviously, you know, none of them really have that kind of trait that I would say. But I'd never seen this guy in my life before, but I would know I would know if you screwed up the skin tone, right?
Yeah.
How does that work?
If
Yeah.
he was really
Mhm.
green or something.
Because
Yeah.
he may have green skin,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, he may have really bright red skin, but we judge it based on our understanding of what skin tone is. So when we're walking around the planet, we are building a database of all the different skin tones I've seen. And when you see somebody and you've never seen somebody with that skin before, then we go, yeah, well, that's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
we do that with skies, and we do that with
It's like a
grass.
built-in correction.
And we have a database in our head, and it's called memory colors. Just look it up on Google, memory colors, and
Memory
things like
colours.
grass and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the grass was right in that shot, but I know when it's wrong
No.
Yeah,
because it's
too green
like
or-
a grass I've never seen before.
No. No.
Cool.
So
But I think with the black and white, maybe you can make. Sometimes black and white is really nice because it's a different level of composition because you play
Yeah.
with more with light
Yeah.
Yeah.
and darks
Yeah,
and
with contrast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and contrast. So
Yeah.
that's the difference. And where in color photography, with color, you have more in the picture to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's if you're trying to do it in camera.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
philosophy would be, at the time of taking the picture, why would you want to commit yourself that this is a black and white shot or this is a color shot? Why would you want to commit at that time? Because
Mhm.
then you've committed that shot to being something. Don't you want it to be neutral in a sense, so it can be anything afterwards?
Yeah, you can make it
That's
black
my,
or you can-
that's
yeah.
my philosophy.
Yeah.
So I reduce the variables on the input of the photography,
Mhm.
so that then I can make a really good color and a really good black and white from the same film, so from the same shot, and even have that inside the same file too. So my wedding workflow thing would be, when I do my batch processing, there would be processing for a color file, then there'd be a group which has all the processing if you want it to be black and white, and then there'd be another group that has all the processing for a sepia, and it'd be saved inside a PSD file. You put that inside InDesign, and then you can just turn on the group that you want, and it inside the publishing software it changes from color to black and white.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
a cool
from
workflow.
from one picture.
Yeah, from one picture. You don't have to sit there in Lightroom and go, oh, well, if it's going to be sepia, it might be this, and it might be this if it's black and white, and it might be
Yeah.
this if it's color, and then have to have 3 versions. You can automate the process. Okay, the consequences are huge, files are huge, but the freedom when you come to creating the album then is very different.
Yeah. And what's huge? Where do you?
The
what do
file
you-
sizes are enormous, and then when I had this workspace in my head, I mean, a 1 gigabyte hard drive was hard to find and very expensive. But now, obviously, workflow is nothing. I mean, RAM, hard drives, things like that.
Yeah, that was also because first I was making my albums in Photoshop. Really bad.
Yeah.
And then I came to your workshop, and then the workflow with the process actually with the PSDs
Yeah.
in InDesign.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But now I have to I step because we have
Yeah.
better album builders
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Fundi or Smart Albums.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But the downside is it doesn't work with PSDs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the downside.
Not always, yeah.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, it's just a factor of quill. It's a jigsaw, isn't it? You just piece together the things, all the different elements you need to create the workflow you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Should we do the last pictures
Yeah,
of you?
sure, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
This one we had.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, one of the guys in the book, the second book, from Raul Neijhorst from Two
Yeah,
Unlimited.
singer.
Yeah, maybe you know that song. No.
oh, is that him?
Yes,
Yeah.
No Limits.
Yeah.
Hey,
Really?
yes, Surinamese guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a legend, huh? Almost.
Yeah. That's a Surinamese guy. He was with Anita Dot. There's a couple. Yeah.
The
Guys,
least
got
amount of
epiphany.
individual lyrics or individual words has ever been made, right?
Yeah. A lot of
No.
Yeah, and there are two words more. No limit. Yeah.
Yeah,
No
that's
limits,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's the guy.
But I think lots of people around the world know the
Yeah.
know the song.
No, the song.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's on the beach at the moment, swinging in his hammock.
Yeah, no, he's in Germany right now. I think in the interview he made some wrong choices in life, financially, I think, or something. So he lost a lot of money,
Mhm.
but I don't remember what he's doing now. But he's still singing. He's still singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his guilty pleasure is playing games.
Maybe.
Football games.
Maybe.
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 I'm just,
Yeah, you have to read it in the book.
oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, just a studio picture with the color gels, red and green color gels, and yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, as a new, I like playing with, experimenting with color gels. I've never done it before in my early photography,
Mm-hmm.
but now I'm using it more and more.
Cool.
So yeah,
Looks good.
thank you. Also one of the book. So the Dutch people, I think, will know from maybe from the Dino show or Flikken met Maastricht.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Little bit.
If you have ever seen the FC Kip from Dino show,
Mhm.
there's a guy who says, "Ik heb het gedaan." Jij hebt het gedaan. No, that guy. You know the guy?
Okay, no.
No, you know. Okay,
No.
but that
But
guy. Is
now I know.
now you know who he is. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Let me see what I've also sent. Oh yeah, a wedding picture.
That's the wedding picture. Yeah.
Wedding picture. Also with with color, with a process action,
Mhm.
or with a wedding action.
The wedding action.
Yeah, there's a difference between the color and the wedding action. Also one from the book, Norali Beyer.
Mm-hmm. She's from Sesamstraat?
No, she's from.
She looks like.
No, from how you call it? The news.
Oh, the
News,
news. Yeah,
news.
she's
Anchor woman, something like that.
Yeah, news anchor.
News anchor,
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she was from Sesame Street, but
No, that is Gerda.
the Dutch
That's,
version.
yeah, that's Gerda. Yeah, this is what did I've done with it? This is shot with a grey background, and then I changed the background with textures and
Oh, cool.
with a different color.
Mm-hmm. So there's a layer on it. Or
Yeah,
a mask.
yeah, and I've used yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this a good skin tone?
No comment, baby.
No comment.
It looks fine to me.
Yeah. This was also in the book. This
Yeah.
is
You just saw.
That was the one I just
Yeah,
picked.
Yeah.
the pic. Yeah,
You put it in the book.
yeah. It looks a little bit warmer than in the book, but that wasn't there.
Yeah, but it's like this was the famous guy from the television
From
we saw.
television, from the
Yeah.
RTL. Yeah.
Roberto
Roberto
Tan.
Tan, Yeah.
If he's now on the table here, this is like Raul here, shaved. Because next time Raul
Next
is on the
time,
table,
I will.
he shaved his head. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
I think this is the last one.
I think as
guess.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the last one. Oh no,
No.
one more from the book, John Williams.
This is from the old book.
This from
the
the
first
old
book, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
from I mixed
This one
some
too.
from the old and the new.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was the last
They're
one.
around. Yeah.
So that way.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you use the action
Nice.
In every picture.
actions in every picture.
In every picture.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In every picture I make, I use the.
I need to get you a new one.
Yeah, you
need
see,
to play with a new one.
yeah, you see a lot of.
No, God no. But I mean, if you like that one,
Yeah, okay, then the
and
new
that's probably how many years old now? 5 years maybe?
one. Yeah,
6
something
years?
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, God.
I stopped when you put the
The
JPEG.
droplet.
Why would you stop there?
Because the in my
Me too. I don't know
workflow,
why.
it got an error in my Photoshop. I don't know, and I thought it was okay, and then
And you just pressed it, and then you just thought there's something wrong with it, and it makes this JPEG.
yeah, sorry,
Seriously.
sorry.
Yeah, all you have to do is, and no, but the thing is, from my point of view, as somebody that has to put things out there, it's really what you encountered and your reaction to it was no different to nearly every member that I have.
Okay.
When it requires you to, like when we used to install the software, and then there was inside the disk there was a README file. That was put there for a really good reason, right? Did
And
you ever
nobody-
read one?
Yeah, I read one. Yeah.
I've never
No,
read one in
no.
my life.
No,
The only time I read one was when I incurred problems
Yeah,
yeah,
because I
yeah,
didn't
okay.
read it.
Yeah.
And then after wasting God knows how much of my life thinking I know this stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I then read the README and it would just go, duh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to do this. So I made this action that would do a call out. Okay,
Mhm.
so one of the Adobe Camera Raw is probably my favorite piece of software, not because it's a great raw converter,
Yeah.
it's a great retouch resource. So it has algorithms in there which are fantastic for retouching. The problem is I don't retouch in raw converters. I do retouching at the end of processing, so it's the very last thing I do. So I had to find a way of getting the image back inside the raw converter so I could use the algorithms for retouching.
Yeah.
That's why I did a save on the JPEG, because
Yeah.
before CC, it was the only way to do it. And I think I probably was the first person ever to even conceive of doing it. I know after I did a whole bunch of workshops around the world, loads of other people started doing it. I don't think it had even occurred to somebody why you would want to do it before. But clarity, skin smoothing, noise, all this stuff that I like to add to pictures, because I hate smooth pictures. They
Mhm.
just are the worst things ever for me. But round tripping, I used to call it round tripping. So once you get to the retouching phase in Photoshop, I want to get that image back into Adobe Camera Raw so I can do something cool to it.
Yeah.
So what you had to do was you had to save a JPEG of that state of the image onto the desktop,
Yeah.
and then tell Adobe Camera Raw to open that as if it was a RAW
Yeah.
file. And all you had to do was go into that action and spend 5 seconds of your life just double clicking and overwriting one
Yeah,
step.
yeah.
And all of your images would have been about 30% higher in quality.
The problem was in the batch. It wasn't the problem wasn't in the
Yeah.
single, but in the batch. In my Photoshop, it
didn't work.
It didn't work. So I
Yeah, I mean, it meant that to get something, you had to give something. So you'd have to spend a bit of time working to
Mhm.
configure it, maybe. But the benefits were huge to get
Mhm.
it. But now, because the Camera Raw plugin is built into Photoshop, it's all integral. So I call out to it now loads of times. So when you press that action, the button probably goes out to Adobe Camera Raw 4 or 5 times in the whole
Okay.
process now. And so I use it a lot. It's a really good piece of software.
Yeah. Cool. So no droplets anymore.
Yeah, you still use droplets. I
Okay.
mean, but now you don't have to do a save as command and an open command because it's all built in.
Mhm.
It's just a part of the script in Photoshop. It's
Yeah,
really
the difference between a droplet is that you do it on a desktop, but you can also go to file,
Yeah, automate
batch,
and
yeah,
use
automate,
image
yeah.
processing.
So there's not that's the droplet is that you can
Make a fixed workflow.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
really,
yeah.
really quick.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
really
What it
easy.
does- I never use a droplet. Just
Yeah, I
just
used
you
it,
can do it.
Yeah.
I have one question. What do you guys think of filters that mimic old analog films instead of color faded hipster filters in smartphones?
I don't. Much to the disappointment of my membership, I have no time for effects and filters at all. I have none at all. I will do it for people, but if they ask me to. But I'd never put an effect on one of my pictures. I like reality. It's more than fulfilling enough for me. So
But is the reality also coming close to the analog kind of way? What kind of?
well, I'd say
picture?
I'd be massively influenced, as that picture showed before.
Mm.
I mean, that was facsimile. It was much closer to the original person than digital is.
Yeah.
So I would be influenced by that. Yeah, I'd say probably. Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, these DxO, isn't it? That do these
Yep,
huge
DxO.
amount of filters. That didn't make it look like film. The film that I knew didn't ever look like that.
Mhm.
So it's not something I'm even remotely interested in. So
Don't know. And for you?
do you do it in your work?
Yeah, sometimes I like the cross processing kind of filters with the Nick the Nick
Mhm.
the Nick
Nick
color
software.
effects. Yeah. Sometimes it's because my clients like it, and that's why I do it. It's not yeah. So sometimes if I have a picture, I think from hey maybe they will like this. I add it. I add.
Yeah, but see, that would be my point with it. You see, you don't ask your customers if they like it before you add it and show them a proof of all the different effects that you can give them. You put it on, and then your customer goes, "Wow, I love that."
Yeah.
But that's a really unqualified
Mm-hmm.
place to be making a judgment call, because they're just saying they like it.
Yeah.
They don't like it in reference to something else.
Yeah.
You don't show them 15 different effects and say, which one would you rather
Yeah.
have? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so
I know.
getting validating the argument because they liked it and they're an unqualified, an uneducated,
Yeah,
or
that's
what's
true.
the word I normally use when it comes to social photography? Oh God. Yeah, I know, what's the word?
Yeah.
Non-discerning customer.
Mhm.
It's the big difference between being a commercial photographer and being
Yeah.
a social photographer.
Yeah.
When you're a commercial photographer, the judge of your work is going to be a discerning customer who's going to
Yeah.
say, it looks like shit, do it again.
Yeah.
And get that filter off of it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if your customer is my mum, then it's a completely different ballgame. I'm not putting it down because of
No,
that,
no.
but you can't look at that as being validation for what you do when
Mhm.
your customer is a non-discerning customer.
Yeah.
Is not qualified to know. Usually, if they can see their face in the pictures, they love them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the question.
That
The
was
last
the
question. Yeah. Do you have some questions in your head that stay there?
Do I have any questions in mind?
Yeah. Oh, do you want to ask a question to Raul or me? So it's fine. Well, but it's for the prize that we can give away at the end of the show.
questions
I'll leave
from.
that to you guys.
Yeah.
Oh.
You don't have you don't have a question that tops your mind. And, oh, this was the question that I like the most.
Oh, the question that I like the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah. That's what I meant to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what it means.
Yeah,
the
that's
the
what it
question.
means.
Now I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're asking us to choose what you think
What
is
is the best
probably
Yeah.
the best
yeah.
question.
What question do you hear tonight? You say, hey, that was a good one.
Damn.
Yeah, there were so much.
Yeah.
It was wrong right at the beginning, and I can't remember what it was now.
There was one in the beginning. I can.
No. It's fine. It's fine.
No?
Um,
And I have another question for you.
okay.
I put people on my table. What kind
Put
of?
people on your
Yeah, I
table?
put
Oh.
people on my table. So stand up and go on my table. No,
Yeah.
at the table.
Yeah.
Who do you want to see here in your spot? What kind of image maker do you want?
I would be the last person you should ask that question. Like
I always ask it to every.
Yeah, okay.
every
I mean, okay. Who would be sitting here that would
Or-
make me watch it?
yeah, or
because
maybe
I
a
don't
topic
watch
or
these things.
yeah, or
I
a
know
topic.
I make these things. I'm
Mhm.
a part of it, and there are people watching, but I don't
Yeah.
watch these things. What would make me watch it? Holy! You go first.
You already had William.
William Rutte is here. Yeah, he's coming back.
He's coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say then Umberto.
Umberto, yeah.
Dan or Kim
Yeah.
Veesra.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I asked Humberto.
Yeah.
I saw him with the
Yeah, you told
the,
me,
the
yeah.
silver camera.
Yeah.
I think so. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, maybe
because you
something
need to have a
inter-
Dutch person, wouldn't you? Really?
No,
No, it
no.
could be
I
international.
don't know.
If it would be international, I
it's
would.
possible for me to ask them and they will coming on the
Okay,
table.
okay. Because this is a part of what I do, and it's going to be a much bigger part of what I do in the future. I've got a list of people that I'm going to be bringing on to what I do, and there's a guy that I would have on if I was in your chair, which I am nearly all the time in my world. The person I would have here
Mhm.
is a guy called Hoss.
Hoss.
Just Hoss, and I would have him here because when it's not like I don't have any belief that I'm going to necessarily learn anything, but there are some people you just listen when they speak, right? Whether they're
He's
talking
there.
about going to the shops, buying milk, or whatever.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah, and Hoss is such an interesting character, and you should invite him on. He'd have to come over from the UK. He lives just outside London somewhere, but
Oh.
he's a good guy.
Okay.
A
Does he
really
do?
good guy.
I had
He's a professional photographer.
I had to know that with the road trip. I went to London.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's a good guy.
He's good.
I think about him a lot, and when I am doing this in the not so distant future for myself and with what we're doing, I will certainly be begging him to come on. So
Cool.
I would want Hoss to be here.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
I hope that I hope he will.
I'll
be
send you a
too.
link of the
Yeah.
website of
Cool.
him and his details, and you
Cool.
can invite him on. Yeah,
So-
I would have him on.
Any question pops in mind? Or we show you choose it
I'm going
later?
to let you do it.
Me do it. We're gonna choose it later, and we'll set it in the comments.
In
you
the
know?
comments,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I think that's the best one.
Yeah.
I don't have one that pops in mind as well
Yeah.
for me.
No,
For you?
me
Will?
neither.
No?
No.
Do you want to plug
The plug.
plug something? Your second one?
Yeah, you've
Give
got a
you.
book
I
here.
give you your 15 minutes of fame
Oh!
because you are building your second
Have a
book,
book.
and maybe
Okay.
you want to say something about your second book. When
Okay.
and then we can end the show.
Shall I do it? Shall I do it in Dutch? Maybe that's
Yeah,
more.
If you want to do it in
Ja,
Dutch, it's
dat
no
is
problem.
misschien
Yeah, I can cut it out. maybe.
Nee, maar dat is beter.
Subtitles,
Ja,
yeah.
subtitles, ja. Nou, ik heb in ieder geval een boek, Suriname bekend. Het is een boek met 75 ja, bekende Surinamers. Een aantal kennen jullie. Ik zal heel even snel doorbladeren. Jullie zullen niet allemaal kennen, maar dat is ook de bedoeling. Ik wil ook de mensen zichtbaar maken die jullie niet kennen. Kijk. Maar in ieder geval waar het eigenlijk om gaat, ik ben nu met een crowdfunding bezig. Het tweede boek komt eraan met 75 andere sterren. En die kunnen jullie, als jullie willen, kunnen jullie het boek alvast heel voordelig aanschaffen. En ja, ik zou zeggen, ga gewoon kijken. Linkje, wat is handig?
Ik gooi er een linkje onder. Waar
linkje.
kunnen ze naartoe?
Ja,
Weet je
dat
de
is- ja,
site?
ja, eigenlijk naar de Apura website, apura.org. En Apura is A-P-U-R-A en dan .org. En dan moet je even zoeken naar Suriname bekend, dan zie je dat wel eigenlijk wel ergens staan. En anders droppen we een linkje
Ik
ergens.
zorg gewoon
Ja,
sowieso dat we dit ertussen uitknippen zo,
Ja,
en dan een linkje voor je
precies,
maken.
ja, een linkje. En dan
helemaal,
kun je
gaat
dat
goed
goed
over.
Ja, dat is het. Verder niks van iets.
Cool. Ik ga weer switch naar English.
Ja,
I'm gonna
English.
switch to English. Yeah.
Yes. English.
It was a pleasure to having you guys in the show. Thanks, man, for coming.
Yes.
Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you. Yes.
And thanks for you guys watching us. We're gonna decide later who wins the exposure, because it's a difficult one this time. And I will put it in the comments below, and that's no problem. Next week we have the last show for this season, and then we're going in summer stop or summer season. I don't know how you call it in English. And we're doing in
Summer break.
summer break. That is the good one. Yeah. And we're gonna do a show like this, but with a little twist. And the twist is you're gonna see next week.
Oh, the surprise.
It's a surprise, yeah. The guests are Hans van Eijsen and Jennifer and Gerwin, and I will tell you all about them when they come. So
Cool.
see you next time, and bye bye from Delft.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for watching.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
watching. Outro. Boom.